I'm Jean Nolte, editor at Fons & Porter.
And I'm Colleen Tauke, and I'm the sewing specialist with Fons & Porter. In this Sew Easy, we're going to talk about needle turn applique.
You know, lots of people are kind of afraid of applique, but it's not that hard. It just takes a little practice to get it looking really crisp and clean.
Exactly. Okay. First off, we're going to start with the shapes that you have in your pattern. In this example, we're going to deal with a shape that looks like a leaf. So you take your shape and you're going to transfer it to a template plastic, trace around it, and then cut it out. The reason why we're using template plastic is it has a durable edge and it won't shrink over time as you trace around that edge. In the past, they used to use cardboard and the edges got worn, but the template plastic works great.
Well, and you could use cardboard, but you just will probably have to make several templates because they get a little ragged on the edges
Cut them over and over, exactly. And if there are more than one, say for example, more than one leaf shape in your project, you may have to code them. In this pattern, it was originally called leaf D. So you might be able to write on there to keep track of which one's which.
Similar things, you'd want to keep track of what's what.
Exactly.
All right, so I am going to just trace right around this exact shape. I'm going to do it pretty lightly because we don't.
She's using a water-soluble ceramic pencil, and that way the lines will disappear when the quilt is washed. And she's placing them so that we can cut about a 1/4 inch of seam allowance around the outside of that shape.
So if I needed more of these, which likely would, I'm going to leave at least a 1/2 inch in between there and then go ahead and draw around it again.
Exactly.
Okay, so now you have the one that's already.
We've already gone ahead and cut out one. You can see that we've used the scissors then just to leave about a 1/4 inch of seam allowance all the way around. It's not so imperative that it's exactly a 1/4 inch because it's going to be turned under.
And you're going to use that line as your edge of your shape.
That's the outer edge. Okay, so then we are going to take a length of thread. Don't work with too long of a piece of thread. And we're going to be using red so you can see what we're doing today.
You know, I've heard people say use a length of thread that's from your elbow to the tip of your fingers.
That's probably a good length. It keeps the thread from getting knotted up when you're working. You're going to bring the thread up through the background, and we've knotted it underneath. And I'm going to start along the side of the leaf and place it right along the area where we've come up. And what I'm going to be doing is taking just a tiny little stitch right on the fold of the leaf and pulling it snug. Now, if I were to jump and make a long stitch here, there'd be kind of a gap, and you would see a lot of thread.
You'd see that thread, too.
The thread would show a lot on the top. The idea is to hide your stitching as much as possible. So where the thread is coming out of the leaf, I'm going to go straight back down into the background and take just about an 1/8 inch length stitch right into the fold of my leaf and pull and snug it down.
You want to pull it snug, but not so much that it causes puckers.
Right, we don't want it to be gathered, we want it to just be snug. So just a little tiny tug.
So you would just keep going like that. Your stitches are going to be pretty much invisible on the front. But if you flip that over, you'll see that there are like running stitches on the back, and that's okay because they will never show.
Exactly. So when we're stitching here with red so that you can see what we're doing, I would probably match. If I were really doing this for a quilt for myself, I would use that color green.
You would match
close as I could
the
get.
applique piece rather than the background.
Exactly. And another tip, and if you really get into needle turn applique, there is a thread called silk thread. It's really fine, and your stitching is almost completely invisible when you work with that. Okay, so as we move along up the side of the shape, we've got...
We're going to get to that point.
We're going to get to the other end of the leaf, and we're going to want to take the needle and you turn that fabric, that's why it's called needle turn, and get it to nudge under as we get to that tip.
Now you're not pressing this under or anything before you start. You're starting with a flat piece.
Nope, you're working just by hand, and you're going to take an extra stitch into the end of shapes like this little leaf.
Right at that point, you want to just reinforce it with one extra little stitch.
Right, because that's going to take a lot of wear, because that's a small area there, it's pointed. So we take that extra little stitch to anchor that, and then we're going to work our way back up the other side of the leaf. Again,
so you just use the needle to turn a little fabric under, just a little ahead of where you are.
Just a little bit at a time. In addition to using silk thread, if you were to get into this, these are hand applique needles, but there's also a needle called straw needles, and they're really fine, almost bendable, and that helps you take a really small bite into the fold of your applique.
You know, it's like anything, the more you do of a certain technique, the more tools you want to help you make it easier.
Exactly. And then you would finish out the other side of your leaf shape there. That's needle turn applique. Thanks for joining us today.
For more Sew Easy videos, go to fonsandporter.com.